Thanks, Cyrus. I've got 5 quick backend items to tell you about in 7.2. The first is going to be about the DI ODBC driver. Normally, when you think about ODBC, you're thinking about bringing data from other databases and combining them in Diver platform. Here I mean the opposite, taking advantage of all the work you've done to prepare data in Diver platform and exporting it to be usable in third-party apps for analysis and reporting. This is not a new feature, we've had it for years. However, how you configure it has been improved. Previously, you would define one DSN in Windows or your system for each particular table, cbase, cplan factory you want to connect to. Now you can define just one DSN and use Workbench to do that work as you need to. So you can define in the ODBC registry in server settings a particular virtual table. The factory virtual table, when you select against it via ODBC, will pull data out of this particular factory. When you select against the product table, you're actually talking to the product cbase in the sales project. We're hoping this makes life just a little bit easier when using DI ODBC. Next up, let's talk about name group lookup files. Name groups are an oldie but goodie. You may remember that they're just a named group of dimension values. Your priority accounts, your top salespeople. They're very important for filtering displays. You can use them to filter rows via a quick view and a pull down. You can use them actually to filter column calculations. You might have a column that's just the sales for a particular group of accounts. There are 4 ways to define name groups. You can just literally write down the values. They are in that group. You can do this in both die plans and C plans. You can describe time ranges like this year or month to date. You can, if you're using C plans, actually write arbitrary expressions for maybe looking at the contents of a string or even running some other calculation and deciding if this element is part of that group or not. And finally, you have the external text file option. This is powerful because it gives you external and dynamic control. These files could be uploaded by you or by users. They could be the result of some complex arbitrary ETL process you have. They could be modified interactively by your users with the Lookup Manager portlet. The users will get to see changes immediately. This is great, and we've had this for a long time in die plans of the model engine. What's new this year is now they're available in C plans as well. Let's talk about Measure Factory now. 3 items here. First is analysis templates. When you have a Measure Factory display like this, all of the numbers are live. Clicking on them should give you more information. If I click on that total admissions number, I'm going to find out what data rows are behind that, and then I can dive and do more analysis. In fact, we call this concept an analysis. This is a predefined dive window of quick views, dimensions, and summaries that should appear when the user clicks on a measure. Each measure has its own and could display a different analysis. However, we found that you often have many, maybe dozens of measures that should produce the same analysis. Previously, this would result in a lot of copy and pasting, and worse, if you wanted to make a change in the future, you'd have to change it in a lot of places. We've implemented the obvious correction for that, which is an analysis template, defined once, referenced many times, and you gain much improved maintainability over your measures. Let's talk about internal rules in Measure Factory. As the slide title says, Measure Factory rules. Okay, rules are used in Factory to define columns and calculations. This is how you get the calcs for a measure and also how you filter measures. There are some rules, though, that are really just sort of temporary, used to help you define measures along the way. They don't need to actually come in the output. Sometimes you have rules that are used not to affect a measure, but to be available in the output for later use downstream. So there's been some confusion over the years. Is a particular rule going to end up as a cbase column or as a cplan expression dimension? We've decided to make things simpler. All rules now will come out as cbase columns, unless you say not to. You can mark a cbase, you can mark a rule as an internal. This means it is fine to use in the factory configuration, but won't end up in the output. And will never emit cplan expression dimensions here. This is designed to give you more control with fewer surprises. Finally, let's talk about measure properties. All measures have properties in a factory. It's one of the defining elements to let you do data governance. And we have a set of 13 ones that are predefined, such as the name, the actual calculation, some definition text. We even have one that affects the display, the good direction, for thresholds and up and down arrows. You can pull these out via macros, one for each. But what happens if you want to have your own? Now you can define your own. You can define a measure called owner if that's important to the way you do data governance. You might want to have multiple thresholds for a particular measure that vary measure to measure. Now you can do that pretty simply in the factory. You can reference them in your portal here with the measure custom property macro. The end result will be letting you update displays like this, where maybe now you have owner or other metadata you want to expose to your users. It also makes doing per measure thresholds easier than using aux measures, and it can be used to impact styling and formatting in your matrix, measures, and indicator portlets. I hope all those backend improvements are of use to you in the future, and now I'd like to turn it over to James to talk about Workbench.